A desperate plea. In the far reaches of the Milky Way, the once mighty galactic alliance teetered on the brink of collapse. For decades, they had watched with growing dread as the ruthless Zorlax conquered star system after star system, leaving only ashes and enslaved populations in their wake. The Zorlax, a race of towering insectoid warriors, seemed unstoppable. Their advanced technology and sheer numbers overwhelmed every defense the Alliance could muster. As the situation grew more dire, the Alliance leadership convened an emergency meeting on their capital world of Cythria Prime. "We have no choice," said Chancellor Zorlan, his voice heavy with resignation. "We must seek help from the humans." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the gathered representatives. The humans, long isolated on their homeworld of Earth, were an enigma. They had achieved faster-than-light travel centuries ago, but had chosen to remain largely within their own star system. "Can we trust them?" asked Ambassador Neelam of the Aetherans. "Their history is filled with conflict and unpredictability." "We have no other options," Chancellor Zorlan replied grimly. "The humans are our last hope. Their technology has advanced in ways we can scarcely imagine, and their warriors are said to be among the most fearsome in the galaxy." With great reluctance, the Alliance voted to send a distress signal to Earth. They knew it was a gamble, but it was one they had to take. As the transmission beamed across the light years, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. On Earth, life continued as it had for centuries. The great cities buzzed with activity, and the global government, led by President Alyssa Novak, worked to maintain peace and prosperity for the planet's 12 billion inhabitants. That peace was shattered when the Alliance's distress signal reached Earth's monitoring stations. President Novak was briefed immediately, and she called an emergency meeting of the Global Security Council. "This is it," she said, her eyes flashing with determination. "This is the moment we've been preparing for. The galaxy needs us, and we will answer the call." For years, Earth had been quietly building up its military forces, knowing that one day they might be called upon to defend not just their own world, but the galaxy itself. Now that day had come. General Marcus Graves, the gruff, battle-hardened commander of Earth's space fleet, outlined the plan. "We'll send our most advanced ships and our best troops," he said. "We've got weapons and tech the Alliance has never seen. We'll catch the Zorlax by surprise and hit them hard." As word of the impending mission spread, a sense of unity and purpose swept across Earth. Millions volunteered for military service, eager to be part of this historic moment. In factories and shipyards across the planet, the gears of war began to turn, churning out ships, weapons, and supplies at an unprecedented rate. Within weeks, Earth's fleet was ready. Led by the flagship ESS Valiant, a marvel of human ingenuity and technological prowess, the Armada set forth into the stars. Thousands of ships, crewed by the best and brightest of humanity, rocketed into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the blue-white marble of Earth receded behind them, Admiral Nora Vance, the newly appointed commander of the Expeditionary Force, addressed her crew. "We go not just to fight for the Alliance," she said, her voice filled with conviction, "but for the future of all life in the galaxy. We are humanity's sword and shield, and we will not fail." And so, with a final blast of their engines, the human fleet leaped forward into the void, ready to answer the desperate plea of the cosmos. The journey ahead would be long and perilous, but they would face it with the courage and determination that had defined their species since the dawn of time. In the depths of space, the Zorlak war machine continued its inexorable advance, unaware that a new power was rising to challenge its dominion. The terrifying humans had heard the galaxy's call, and they were coming, ready to unleash the full might of their civilization upon the stars. The journey begins. As the human fleet blazed a trail through the stars, the enormity of their task began to sink in. The Milky Way was a vast and dangerous place, and the Zorlax had already conquered a significant portion of it. The journey to the Alliance's last bastion would take months, even with Earth's advanced faster-than-light drives. Admiral Nora Vance knew that the long voyage presented both challenges and opportunities. She was determined to use the time to forge her diverse crew into a cohesive fighting force, ready to face the horrors that awaited them. In the cavernous training bays of the ESS Valiant, the human warriors honed their skills. They trained in zero-gravity combat, mastering the art of maneuvering in the weightless environment of space. They drilled endlessly with their advanced weapons, from the devastating plasma rifles to the intricate nanodrones that could swarm and overwhelm enemy defenses. But Admiral Vance knew that technology alone would not be enough to defeat the Zorlax. The true strength of humanity lay in its indomitable spirit, its ability to adapt and overcome in the face of adversity. She encouraged her crew to bond with each other, to forge the unbreakable ties of comradeship that would see them through the trials to come. As the weeks turned into months, the human fleet pressed deeper into uncharted space. They marveled at the wonders they encountered, from the iridescent nebula that painted the void in shimmering colors to the binary stars that danced in eternal partnership. But they also faced dangers, from the gravitational anomalies that threatened to tear their ships apart to the strange, hostile life forms that lurked in the depths of space. Through it all, the humans remained resolute. They knew that the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and they would not falter in their duty. But as they drew closer to their destination, a sense of unease began to grow among the crew. Strange signals began to emanate from the darkness, whispers of an ancient and malevolent intelligence. The Zorlax, it seemed, were not the only threat that lurked in the cosmos. Admiral Vance ordered her technical experts to investigate, and what they found chilled them to the bone. The signals were a form of psychic energy, a twisted and corrupted version of the natural telepathy that many species in the galaxy possessed. The Zorlax, it seemed, had not conquered so many worlds through sheer military might alone. They had a secret weapon, a way to manipulate and control the minds of their enemies. As the implications sank in, Admiral Vance knew that the challenge they faced was even greater than they had imagined. The Zorlax were not just a physical threat, but a psychological one as well. To defeat them, the humans would need to be strong not just in body, but in mind and spirit as well. Despite the growing sense of danger, the human fleet pressed on. They knew that they could not turn back, not when the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. And so, with grim determination, they sailed deeper into the unknown, ready to face whatever horrors the cosmos had in store. Like years ahead, on the besieged worlds of the Alliance, a glimmer of hope began to dawn. The distress signal had been heard, and the rumors began to spread. The humans were coming, and with them, a chance for salvation. But as the Zorlak war machine tightened its grip on the galaxy, that hope seemed to flicker and fade. On the bridge of his mighty warship, the Zorlak overlord Zaxar brooded over the reports of the approaching human fleet. He had heard the legends of these upstart primates, of their tenacity and their strange, unconventional ways of war. But he was not afraid. He had crushed 1,000 species beneath his iron heel, and the humans would be no different. As the galaxy held its breath, the stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through the ages. The terrifying humans, with their indomitable spirit and their advanced weapons, were on a collision course with the Zorlax, the scourge of the stars, and in the balance hung the fate of all life in the cosmos. First contact. As the human fleet approached the last free star system of the Alliance, a sense of trepidation hung heavy in the air. They had come so far, braved so many dangers, but now the true test of their resolve was at hand. Admiral Nora Vance stood on the bridge of the ESS Valiant, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen as the alien star system came into view. It was a sight both beautiful and tragic, a cluster of worlds that had once been the thriving heart of the Alliance, now reduced to a last, desperate bastion against the Zorlak onslaught. As the fleet drew closer, the comm channels crackled to life. The Alliance had detected their approach and was hailing them, a mixture of hope and fear in their voices. Admiral Vance took a deep breath and opened the channel. "This is Admiral Nora Vance of the Earth Expeditionary Force. she said, her voice calm and commanding. "We come in peace, to stand with you against the Zorlak threat." There was a moment of silence, then a response. The voice was alien, but the emotion behind it was all too familiar, relief tinged with desperation. "Welcome, Admiral Vance," the voice said. "I am Chancellor Zorlan of the Galactic Alliance. We have prayed for your arrival, and now our prayers have been answered." But even as the Chancellor spoke, Admiral Vance could sense the unease in his voice. The Alliance had been fighting the Zorlaks for so long, had seen so many of their own fall before the enemy's might. They were not sure what to make of these strange, unpredictable humans and their claims of advanced technology and warrior prowess. As the human fleet took up position around the Alliance's last stronghold, tensions began to rise. The Alliance species, a diverse array of beings from across the galaxy, looked upon the human ships with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Some whispered that the humans were saviors, come to deliver them from the Zorlak threat. Others muttered that they were just another species of upstarts, doomed to fall before the enemies might like so many before them. Admiral Vance knew that she had to act quickly to secure the trust and cooperation of the Alliance. She called for a meeting of the Alliance leadership, determined to forge a united front against the Zorlaks. In the Grand Council chambers of the Alliance capital, Admiral Vance stood before the assembled leaders. She was an imposing figure, tall and strong, with piercing eyes that seemed to see into the very souls of those she addressed. "I know you have suffered much at the hands of the Zorlaks," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "I know you have lost worlds, lost loved ones, lost hope. But I am here to tell you that you are not alone. Humanity stands with you, and together we will drive the Zorlaks back into the darkness from whence they came." As she spoke, Admiral Vance could see the effect her words were having. The Alliance leaders sat up straighter, their eyes brightening with a newfound sense of purpose. They had been fighting a losing battle for so long, but now, with the humans at their side, they dared to dream of victory once more. But even as the Alliance and the humans began to work together, planning their strategies and coordinating their forces, a new threat emerged. The Zorlaks, it seemed, had taken notice of the human arrival. Deep within Zorlak territory, Overlord Zaxxor seethed with rage. These humans, these insignificant primates, dared to challenge his dominion over the galaxy. They would pay for their insolence with their lives. Zaxxor summoned his most trusted generals and gave them their orders. The humans were to be eliminated, their fleet destroyed, their worlds conquered. The Zorlaks would show the galaxy the price of defiance. As the Zorlak war machine began to mobilize, Admiral Vance and the Alliance leadership worked feverishly to shore up their defenses. They knew that the enemy would not wait long to strike, and they had to be ready. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations, a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. On one side stood the Zorlaks, a ruthless and relentless foe, determined to crush all who opposed them. On the other side stood the Alliance and the humans, united in their determination to defend the last bastion of freedom in the cosmos. As the first Zorlak ships appeared on the edge of the system, Admiral Vance stood tall on the bridge of the ESS Valiant. She knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that many would fall in the battles to come. But she also knew that the human spirit was indomitable, that they would fight to the last breath to protect those they had sworn to defend. And so, as the Zorlak ships drew closer and the alarms began to sound, Admiral Vance gave the order that would echo through the ages. All ships, engage the enemy. For Earth, for the Alliance, for the future. Let's give them hell. The calm before the storm. In the days that followed the human fleet's arrival, a flurry of activity consumed the Alliance's last stronghold. Human and Alliance forces worked side by side, fortifying defenses, coordinating strategy, and preparing for the impending Zorlak attack. Admiral Vance was at the center of it all, a whirlwind of energy and determination. She met with Alliance generals and strategists, sharing the advanced tactical knowledge that humanity had developed over centuries of conflict. She oversaw the integration of human and Alliance weaponry, ensuring that every ship and soldier was armed with the best technology the combined forces could muster. But even as the preparations continued at a fevered pace, Admiral Vance could sense an undercurrent of tension among the Alliance forces. They had fought the Zorlax for so long, had seen the enemy's terrifying power firsthand. Some wondered if even the might of the human fleet would be enough to turn the tide. To bolster morale, Admiral Vance called for a grand assembly of all Alliance and human forces. In the great hangar bay of the Alliance capital ship, thousands of soldiers and crew members gathered, a sea of faces from 100 different worlds. Admiral Vance stood before them, her voice amplified by the hangar speakers. "I know you are afraid," she said, her words echoing through the vast space. "I know you have seen the Zorlax cruelty, felt their oppression. But I am here to tell you that we are not alone. Together, we are stronger than they can ever imagine." As she spoke, Admiral Vance could see the effect her words were having. The assembled warriors stood taller, their eyes shining with a newfound sense of purpose. They had been fighting a losing battle for so long, but now, united with the humans, they dared to believe that victory was within reach. But even as hope began to blossom, a dark shadow loomed on the horizon. Human spies, working deep within Zorlak territory, uncovered a terrifying secret. The Zorlax were developing a new weapon, a device of unimaginable destructive power. The spies' reports were fragmentary, but the implications were clear. The weapon was a world killer, capable of reducing entire planets to rubble in a matter of seconds. With such a device at their disposal, the Zorlax would be unstoppable. Admiral Vance knew that she had to act fast. If the Zorlax completed their weapon, all hope would be lost. She called a meeting of her most trusted officers and Alliance leaders, and together they hatched a daring plan. A small team of human and Alliance special forces would infiltrate the Zorlak research facility, where the weapon was being developed. They would steal the weapon's schematics and destroy the prototype, buying precious time for the combined forces to mount a counteroffensive. It was a risky gambit, but Admiral Vance knew that they had no choice. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. As the Special Forces team prepared for their mission, the rest of the human and Alliance forces redoubled their efforts. Engineers worked around the clock to strengthen the fleet's shields and weapon systems, while tacticians pored over star maps, looking for any advantage they could exploit against the Zorlax. In the midst of the preparations, Admiral Vance took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. She thought of Earth, of the billions of souls who were counting on her to lead them to victory. She thought of the brave men and women under her command, who had sacrificed so much to answer the call of duty. And she thought of the Alliance, of the countless species who had suffered under the Zorlak's brutal regime. They were depending on her, on humanity, to be their sword and shield in this darkest hour. As she looked out over the bustling hangar bay, Admiral Vance felt a surge of determination. They would not fail. They could not fail. The galaxy was counting on them. Deep in Zorlak space, Overlord Zaxar brooded in his command chamber. The reports of the human fleet's preparations had reached him, and he seethed with rage. These upstarts dared to defy him, to challenge the might of the Zorlak Empire. He would crush them, grind them to dust beneath his iron heel. And when the galaxy lay broken and defeated at his feet, all would know the price of defiance. As the Special Forces team set out on their desperate mission, and the fleets readied themselves for battle, a sense of anticipation hung heavy in the air. The calm was ending. The storm was about to break. And in the crucible of conflict, the fate of the galaxy would be forged behind enemy lines. As the human and Alliance fleets prepared for the coming storm, a small group of elite warriors was already in motion. The Special Forces team, composed of the best and brightest from both the human and Alliance militaries, had set out on a mission that could change the course of the war. Their objective was clear: infiltrate the heavily guarded Zorlak research facility, steal the plans for the enemy's new superweapon, and destroy the prototype before it could be used against the Allied forces. Leading the team was Captain Sarai Vex, a human officer with a reputation for cunning and daring. At her side was Lieutenant Zallar, an Alliance warrior with unmatched skills in stealth and infiltration. Together, they guided their team through the treacherous depths of Zorlak space, evading enemy patrols and navigating the twisted corridors of the research station. Every step was fraught with danger, every moment a test of their resolve and training. As they delved deeper into the facility, the true horror of the Zorlak's plans became clear. The superweapon was not just a device of mass destruction. It was an abomination, a fusion of technology and twisted biology that violated every law of nature and morality. In the heart of the research chamber, they found the prototype, a pulsating mass of machinery and flesh, writhing with an unholy life of its own. Captain Vex felt a wave of revulsion wash over her, but she steeled herself against it. They had a job to do. With lightning speed and surgical precision, the team went to work. Lieutenant Zallar and his warriors secured the perimeter, holding off the Zorlak guards with a barrage of blaster fire. Meanwhile, Captain Vex and her tech experts hacked into the facility's mainframe, downloading the weapons schematics and planting a series of explosive charges. It was a race against time. Every second counted. The Zorlaks were closing in, alerted to the intrusion. The team fought with desperate fury, pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion. Just as they secured the last of the data, a massive explosion rocked the facility. The Zorlaks had triggered a self-destruct sequence, determined to bury the evidence of their vile creation. Captain Vex knew they had only moments to escape. She ordered her team to fall back, fighting their way through the crumbling corridors and collapsing chambers. They emerged from the facility just as it imploded behind them, a roiling fireball consuming everything in its wake. But even as they made their escape, the team knew their mission was not yet complete. They had the weapons plans, but the Zorlaks had discovered their incursion. Even now, enemy ships were converging on their location, determined to recapture the stolen data. With grim determination, Captain Vex ordered her ship to set a course for the Allied fleet. They would have to run a gauntlet of Zorlak warships, fighting for every light-year of space. As the chase began, the Special Forces team prepared for the fight of their lives. They manned the ship's battle stations, readying weapons and shields for the coming onslaught. In the depths of space, a desperate race unfolded. The small, agile ship of the Special Forces team darted and weaved through a hail of enemy fire, its shields flaring with each impact. Behind them, the Zorlak ships closed in, their weapons hammering relentlessly. But the human and Alliance warriors would not be denied. With skill and daring, they outmaneuvered their pursuers, slipping through their grasp time and again. And when the Zorlaks drew too close, the team unleashed the full fury of their own weapons, blasting the enemy ships into oblivion. In a final, desperate gambit, Captain Vex ordered her ship to plunge into a nearby asteroid field, hoping to lose their pursuers in the treacherous maze of floating rock. It was a risky move, but it paid off. The Zorlak ships, too large and cumbersome to navigate the field, were forced to break off their pursuit. Battered but unbroken, the Special Forces team emerged from the asteroids and set a course for the Allied fleet. They had completed their mission, but at a terrible cost. Many of their comrades had fallen, sacrificing their lives to secure the weapons plans. But even as they mourned their losses, the team knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain. With the superweapons secrets in hand, the Allies now had a fighting chance against the Zorlak menace. As they approached the Allied fleet, Captain Vex couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. They had struck a blow against the enemy. But the true battle was still to come, and in that battle, the fate of the galaxy would be decided. The line in the stars. As the Special Forces team raced back to the Allied fleet with the stolen superweapon plans, the Zorlak armada was already on the move. Overlord Zaxar, enraged by the audacious raid on his research facility, had ordered the full might of his forces to crush the human and Alliance upstarts once and for all. In the heart of the Allied fleet, Admiral Vance, and her commanders watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The Zorlak ships were closing fast, their numbers far greater than anything the Allies had faced before. But even in the face of this overwhelming threat, Admiral Vance refused to despair. She had faith in her people, in the strength and courage of the human and Alliance warriors. They would stand firm, no matter the odds. As the Zorlak fleet entered the system, the Allied ships moved to intercept. The ESS Valiant, the pride of the human fleet, led the charge, its mighty guns blazing with the fury of 1,000 suns. The battle was joined, and the very fabric of space seemed to shudder under the onslaught. Energy beams crisscrossed the void, missiles and torpedoes exploded in dazzling cascades of light and fury. Ships on both sides were hammered, hulls breached, and crews lost to the pitiless vacuum of space. But even as the Allies fought with desperate valor, the sheer weight of Zorlak numbers began to tell. One by one, human and Alliance ships fell, torn apart by the relentless barrage of enemy fire. On the bridge of the Valiant, Admiral Vance gritted her teeth as another volley of Zorlak missiles slammed into the ship's shields. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and the deck lurched beneath her feet. Shields down to 30%. A crewman shouted over the din of battle. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. Admiral Vance knew they couldn't take much more of this. The Zorlaks were simply too strong, their firepower too overwhelming. But she refused to give in to despair. "Divert all power to forward shields and weapons," she ordered, her voice calm and steady despite the chaos around her. "We hold the line, no matter the cost." And hold the line they did. With the stolen superweapon plans, the human and Alliance engineers had worked feverishly to analyze the Zorlak technology, looking for any weakness they could exploit. And they had found one. A tiny flaw in the enemy ship's shield harmonics, a vulnerability that could be exploited by a precisely calibrated energy pulse. It was a long shot, but it was their only hope. As the battle raged around them, the Allied ships began to concentrate their fire, focusing all their energy on the weak points in the Zorlak defenses. For a moment, it seemed as if their efforts were in vain. The Zorlak ships continued their relentless advance, their shields shrugging off the Allied fire like raindrops on a windshield. But then, just as all hope seemed lost, something incredible happened. A volley of human torpedoes, guided by the stolen shield data, slammed into the flank of a massive Zorlak battleship. For a split second, the enemy vessel's shields flickered and failed, and in that instant, a concentrated barrage from a dozen Alliance cruisers tore through its hull like tissue paper. The battleship exploded in a blinding flash of light, and a cheer went up from the Allied fleet. They had done it. They had found the chink in the Zorlak armor. With renewed vigor, the human and Alliance ships pressed their attack. Everywhere, Zorlak vessels began to falter, their shields failing under the precision strikes of the Allied weapons. But even as the tide began to turn, Admiral Vance knew that the battle was far from over. The Zorlaks still outnumbered them greatly, and Overlord Zaxar's flagship, a monstrous dreadnought bristling with weapons, had yet to enter the fray. As the flagship loomed on the view screen, Admiral Vance felt a chill run down her spine. This was it, the moment of truth. If they could take out Zaxar's ship, it would deal a crippling blow to the Zorlak war effort. But if they failed, all their sacrifices would be for nothing. With a deep breath, Admiral Vance gave the order to engage. The Valiant and its escorts, the bravest and most battle-hardened ships in the fleet, surged forward, ready to meet their destiny head-on. In the cold, merciless depths of space, the final battle for the fate of the galaxy had begun. Part 7. Victory or Oblivion. As the ESS Valiant and its escort ships hurtled towards the monstrous bulk of Overlord Zaxar's flagship, a hush fell over the Allied fleet. Every eye was fixed on the view screens, every heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread. On the bridge of the Valiant, Admiral Nora Vance stood tall and resolute, her gaze locked on the looming shape of the Zorlak dreadnought. She knew that this was the moment everything had been building towards, the final, decisive clash that would determine the fate of the galaxy. All ships, focus fire on the flagship's main reactor, she ordered, her voice steely with determination. We take that monster down, no matter the cost. As one, the human and Alliance ships unleashed a hurricane of firepower, their weapons stabbing out across the void toward the Zorlak vessel. Missiles and energy beams slammed into the dreadnought's shields, straining them to the breaking point. But the flagship was not defenseless. With a roar of unleashed fury, it returned fire, its gargantuan guns spitting death and destruction. The Valiant shuddered as a direct hit breached its forward shields, sending explosions cascading through its hull. On the bridge, Admiral Vance gripped the arms of her command chair as the deck lurched beneath her feet. Smoke filled the air, and the screams of the wounded echoed over the din of battle. But she did not falter. With a voice of ringing steel, she rallied her crew, urging them to fight on, to give their all in this final, desperate struggle. And fight on they did. With skill and determination, the gunners of the Valiant and its escorts poured fire into the Zorlak flagship, targeting its weakened shields with precision strikes. Slowly, inexorably, they wore down the dreadnought's defenses, piercing its armor and striking deep into its vital systems. In his command chamber, Overlord Zaxar howled with rage as his ship shuddered under the onslaught. He lashed out with every weapon at his disposal, determined to crush the impudent humans and their allies. But Admiral Vance and her warriors would not be denied. With a final titanic effort, they focused all their firepower on the flagship's main reactor, the stolen superweapon plans guiding their aim. There was a moment of breathless silence, a heartbeat of utter stillness, and then, with a blinding flash of light that outshone the stars themselves, the Zorlak dreadnought vanished in a cataclysmic explosion. The shockwave from the blast slammed into the Allied ships, sending them tumbling end over end. On the bridge of the Valiant, Admiral Vance was thrown from her chair, her head cracking against a bulkhead. For a moment, she lay stunned, her vision blurred and her ears ringing. But then, slowly, painfully, she dragged herself back to her feet. "Report," she croaked, her voice raw and hoarse. "The flagship is destroyed," came the awed reply. "Overlord Zaxar is dead." A cheer went up from the battered crew of the Valiant, a cry of triumph that echoed across the fleet. Against all odds, they had done it. They had struck a blow against the Zorlak menace, had given the galaxy a chance at freedom. But even as they celebrated, Admiral Vance knew that their work was not yet done. The Zorlaks were reeling, their command structure in chaos, but they were not yet defeated. There were still battles to be fought, worlds to be liberated, a war to be won. And yet, as she looked out over the shattered remnants of the Zorlak fleet, Admiral Vance felt a sense of hope, of possibility. The road ahead would be long and hard, but they had taken the first step. They had shown the galaxy that the Zorlaks were not invincible, that courage and determination could triumph over even the darkest of foes. With a weary smile, Admiral Vance turned to her crew, to the brave men and women who had fought and bled and sacrificed for this moment. "Well done, all of you," she said, her voice filled with pride and gratitude. "But our work is not yet finished. Let us press on. Let us take this fight to the Zorlaks until every last world is free from their tyranny. For Earth, for the Alliance, for the future, let us see this through to the end." And with those words, the Valiant and its battered but unbroken fleet set out once more, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For they were the guardians of the galaxy, the sword and shield of all that was good and just, and in their hands, the future was bright with the promise of a better tomorrow.